Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of One Piece Wednesday! And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the Reverse Mountain arc is one of the shortest arcs in all of One Piece, so this might be a little bit of a quick video, but nonetheless, Reverse Mountain is full of lore and packed with so much important setup for the future of the story. So without further ado, why don't we just get into it? Picking up right after the events in Logtown, the Straw Hats are finally out on the open sea, heading straight for the Grand Line, specifically towards the Red Line. Nami takes a look at her map and immediately gets concerned. The entrance to the Grand Line isn't what she expected. It involves sailing up a mountain. Here's how it works. There's a canal system built into Reverse Mountain that carries ships up the Red Line and spits them out at the beginning of the Grand Line. All four seas, Northeast, South, and West Blue, have their own canals leading into it, and they all converge at the top. Zoro raises a fair point. Why can't we just sail south and enter from anywhere? Nami agrees that he's technically right, but there's a good reason you don't want to do that. Suddenly, Usopp notices something strange. The storm around them has completely vanished. The sea is now eerily calm. Nami is alarmed because they were supposed to ride that storm straight to the entrance. That's when she realizes the horrifying truth. They've drifted into the Calm Belt. Now, what is the Calm Belt? I'm glad you asked. Nami explains that it's a windless zone that sandwiches the Grand Line. No wind means that your ship is dead in the water. To make matters worse, the Calm Belt is absolutely teeming with sea kings. Getting stuck there basically means fighting for your life with no way to move. That's why it's not really a feasible option. The safest route, even if it's dangerous, is to ride the current up Reverse Mountain and avoid the Calm Belt entirely. Thankfully, the Straw Hats manage to evade the Calm Belt and head straight for Reverse Mountain. As they get closer, Nami pieces together how the sea currents work. The powerful flows from all four blues converge at the mountain, rushing up the canals and colliding at the top, spilling out into the Grand Line. Since they're already caught in one of those currents, all they have to do is steer carefully and avoid crashing. And if you miss the canal, you get swallowed up by the sea. This is our first real look at the Red Line. It is absolutely massive, with its summit disappearing into the clouds. Sure enough, their theory is correct. The Going Merry gets sucked into the current and rockets up the canal. Sanji and Usopp try desperately to steer, but they end up snapping the lever. With disaster looming, Luffy has to think fast to keep the ship from crashing. And just like that, the Straw Hats have successfully reached the top of Reverse Mountain, giving them their first breathtaking view of the Grand Line. And before we go any further, if you're watching the anime, you might have noticed a pretty big arc is missing. That entire arc with all of the dragons and all of that right before they reach Reverse Mountain, it's completely filler, so feel free to just forget about it. And that filler kind of spills into the beginning of the Reverse Mountain arc, and it leads into Nami actually killing somebody, which is not canon. If you're curious about it, feel free to check those episodes out. Just know that it's not canon, and it really doesn't matter for the rest of the story. And just like that, the Straw Hats successfully ride the current to the top of Reverse Mountain and come rushing down towards the Grand Line. But out of nowhere, they're met with an absolutely massive whale covered in scars. It's bigger than anything that they've ever faced. The crew immediately starts scrambling, trying to figure out how to fight this monster. They desperately try to steer the Going Merry, but Luffy has a brilliant idea. He fires the ship's cannon at it, and it does absolutely nothing. A split second later, the Merry crashes right into the whale's face, snapping the figurehead clean off. The whale lets out a deafening roar that stuns everyone. Luffy, never one to quit, punches it right in the eye, which also does nothing except get its full attention. In retaliation, the whale opens its enormous mouth and swallows the Straw Hats whole. Right before they get sucked in, Luffy uses his rubber powers to launch himself onto the whale's head. He watches helplessly as his crew and the ship disappear into its mouth. Then the whale begins to submerge. Just when things look hopeless, Luffy spots something strange on the whale's side, a hatch door. Cut to the inside of the whale, where the rest of the Straw Hats are surprisingly okay, but things quickly get weird. They're staring at a beautiful blue sky and an island floating inside of the whale. Before they can process what they're seeing, a giant squid attacks. Zoro and Sanji prepare to fight it, but it's suddenly struck by several harpoons and dragged towards the island. Meanwhile, Luffy finds himself in a metallic corridor. Clearly, there's a lot more to this whale than meets the eye. And that's when the crew spots a man walking out of the house on the island. He's an older gentleman with a giant flower on his head. Something about him seems off. They're not sure if he's just saved them or if he was simply fishing, because he casually reels in the massive squid with with pure strength. And this is our official introduction to Crocus. Now, Crocus isn't a major player in the story overall, but he is sort of important to one of the bigger plots in all of One Piece, so it's definitely important to keep him in the back of your mind. This part also contains one of my favorite jokes in the entire series, with some great back and forth between Crocus, Sanji, and Zoro. Long story short, Crocus is the keeper of the Twin Cape Lighthouse and the caretaker of this massive whale. He points them towards the exit, which is a giant gate on the side of the whale. It turns out that the beautiful blue sky is all painted. They're still very much inside the whale. Suddenly, the boat starts shaking violently. When they ask Crocus what's happening, he calmly replies that the whale is ramming its head into the red line again. Nami quickly connects the dots. That's why the whale has all of those terrible scars on its face. We cut over to Luffy, who's bouncing around inside of a strange metal corridor that he discovered. At the same time, we're introduced to two mysterious new characters also inside the whale, Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, who are scheming to take out Crocus. To stop the whale from hurting itself, Crocus dives into the water and heads for a small door near the gate. Meanwhile, Luffy accidentally bumps into Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday in the chaos, and all three of them spill out, reuniting Luffy with the rest of the crew. In a quiet moment, we get a glimpse into Crocus's thoughts. Stop hurting yourself. Stop it, Laboon. And that's how we're officially introduced to the whale's name, Laboon. And while Laboon might seem just like a random giant whale at first, he actually does play a bigger role in the greater story, so definitely keep Laboon in the back of your mind. Crocus explains that Laboon is an island whale, a species from the West Blue and some of the largest whales in the world. He also mentions that Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday are from a nearby village and are after Laboon's meat to feed their people. But Crocus refuses to let them harm him. There's a deeper reason Laboon keeps smashing his head into the red line and crying towards Reverse Mountain. We then get a brief but heartfelt backstory from Crocus. Years ago, when he was a lighthouse keeper, a crew of pirates came down Reverse Mountain with a tiny baby whale following their ship. That whale was Laboon. The pirates became good friends with Crocus and stayed at the lighthouse for several months while repairing their ship. On the day that they left to continue their journey around the Grand Line, the captain asked Crocus to look after Laboon for a few years, promising that they'd return after circumnavigating the world. Laboon understood and waited patiently with Crocus. But that was 50 years ago, and Laboon is still waiting for his friends to come back. Directly after, the Straw Hats sail out of Laboon through the giant gate. Crocus mentions that he used to run a clinic on the Cape years ago, and even spent some time as a ship's doctor. Luffy immediately perks up and tries to recruit him to join the crew, but Crocus politely declines. He's simply too old to keep up with them now. Crocus opens the exit, and the Going Merry finally sails into the Grand Line. Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday have regained consciousness and are planning their escape. Before they go, Miss Wednesday drops a cryptic line about their organization having potential interest in their crew. Meanwhile, Luffy finds a strange-looking compass that the two must have dropped. Back at the lighthouse, the crew chats with Crocus about whether those pirates will ever return. Crocus says their fate is uncertain, but even if they're alive, they could never come back. The Grand Line is completely unpredictable. The seasons, climate, ocean currents, air currents, nothing behaves normally here. Luffy gets fired up, realizing that the pirates abandoned Laboon. After 50 years, the whale still believes that they're coming back. Nami asks why Crocus doesn't just tell Laboon the truth, especially since he can understand human speech. Crocus says that he tried many times, but Laboon refused to accept it. We get a quick flashback showing Crocus arguing with a young Laboon, who stubbornly rejects the idea that his friends are gone. That's when Laboon starts ramming his head into the red line. Crocus explains that those pirates weren't just Laboon's friends. They were his only hope of ever going home. When the crew asks why he still takes care of them after all this time, Crocus simply replies, "Look at the scars on his forehead. If he keeps this up with no one to watch over him, he's gonna die. As a doctor, he can't just stand by and let it happen. Plus, they've already been together for the last 50 years. There's no way that he could leave him alone." Suddenly, they hear Luffy screaming at the top of his lungs, running up to the top of Laboon, carrying the ship's mast on his back. And the crew barely reacts. It's just another Luffy thing. Luffy jams the mast straight into one of Laboon's scars, sparking an intense but short fight between them, and in the end they call it a draw. Luffy tells Laboon that his old friends might be gone, but now he has a new rival. He makes a promise. After they make it all the way around the Grand Line, he's gonna come back and fight Laboon again. Laboon seems genuinely happy with this new promise. Directly afterwards, we see that Luffy has created a masterpiece, because he's drawn the Straw Hat Jolly Roger right on Laboon's forehead. He tells the whale that this mark is their contract, and if he keeps ramming his head into the red line, he's gonna erase it. Crocus looks noticeably happy watching this unfold. While that's happening, Usopp is hard at work trying to repair the Going Merry. Even though he's not a shipwright, he's doing his best to fix the damage. Everything seems peaceful for a moment until Nami notices that her compass is spinning wildly out of control. Crocus explains that they entered the Grand Line completely unprepared. As he said before, nothing about this ocean is normal. Their compass isn't broken. The Grand Line is filled with abnormal magnetic fields caused by the rich minerals on its many islands. The sea currents and wind patterns are just as unpredictable. Without proper preparation, you'd surely perish out there. That's when Crocus introduces them to the log posts, a special compass that records magnetic fields. Luffy casually pulls out the weird-looking compass that he found earlier and asks if that's what they need, and Crocus confirms it. He further explains that simply getting into the Grand Line is hard enough, but without a log post, navigation is nearly impossible. Nami immediately gets on Luffy's case for holding on to something so important, but Luffy shrugs it off, saying he literally just picked it up from the other two who left it behind. Nami takes a closer look at the log post and notices that it has no markings. Crocus explains that each island in the Grand Line has its own unique magnetic field. With the log post, you record the field of one island, sail to the next, and repeat the process. From Reverse Mountain, you have to choose one of the 7 possible routes. No matter which path you take, all roads eventually converge at the final island, Raftel, the last island of the Grand Line. In all of history, only one crew is known to have reached it for sure, the crew of the Pirate King, Gold Roger. Raftel is the stuff of legends. Usopp excitedly asks if that's where the One Piece is hidden, and Crocus simply replies, perhaps. No other treasure has ever been more tempting, yet no one else has ever made it there. You can see Luffy is absolutely brimming with excitement. Meanwhile, Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday notice that the Straw Hats have a log post and attempt to take it back. That's when we're introduced to 2 more mysterious characters, a sea otter named Mr. 13 and a vulture named Miss Friday. Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday beg for mercy, but the newcomers aren't listening. They drop a package that causes a massive explosion. Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday make their way to the lighthouse and ask the crew for a ride back to Whiskey Peak. Although the Straw Hats are hesitant, the pair promises to repay them. Miss Wednesday adds that their work requires them to be secretive. Crocus warns them not to trust these two, but Luffy, being Luffy, agrees to let them come along anyways. Nami quickly gets the hang of the new log posts and sets their course for Whiskey Peak. With that, the Straw Hats officially set sail into the Grand Line, waving goodbye to Laboon. We get one final shot of Crocus watching them depart. He quietly says, "Could that bunch be the pirates we've been waiting for all this time? That boy has a strange air about him. Isn't that right, Roger?" And this would imply that Crocus does have a personal relationship with the former king of the pirates, Gold Roger. And with that, our journey through Reverse Mountain comes to an end as the Straw Hats set sail to Whiskey Peak. Anyways, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, but before you go, I do want to leave you with a couple of questions to keep in the back of your mind as we continue through the story. Question number 1, who exactly is this mysterious organization that Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday are currently working for? Question number 2, who are these mysterious pirates who left Laboon 50 years ago? And question number 3, what is Crocus's relationship to Gold Roger? If you have been enjoying these episodes of One Piece Wednesdays, but you do want to move over to the official story, you are free to start the anime at episode 64, and if you're reading the manga, you are free to start at chapter 106. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a future upload, and feel free to leave a comment if I missed anything in this video. But yeah, I think that's everything that I got for you guys in this video. So you guys stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?